1.
Good afternoon, I'm Angela Reimer. I am taking a course at Fort Hays State University in Autism Spectrum Disorder and Leadership. Today I am going to be talking about ASD, which is Autism Spectrum Disorder, and the childhood autism development. There are 10 facts about ASD. Autism, first of all, autism disorder is a developmental disability caused by differences in the brain. People with ASD often have problems with social communication and interaction and restricted or repetitive behaviors or interests. People with ASD may also have different ways of learning, moving, or paying attention. I would like you to watch this video on the 10 things you need to know about autism.
Autism stems from differences in biology that have an influence on brain development. Autism is a lifelong condition. That doesn't mean that children can't make significant improvements in their language and social abilities over time. They can, just like all children. But children don't just grow out of autism. Autism can affect a person's ability to understand subtle emotional cues, such as tone of language or body language. But when emotions are communicated more directly, there's a wealth of evidence showing that children and adults on the spectrum are even more likely to feel empathy for others. Social interaction difficulties and anxiety can sometimes mean that making friends is a struggle. But this should never be confused with a lack of desire to have friendships. The vast majority of children and adults on the spectrum do like to socialise, and sometimes that just means socialising in a different way. It is true that around 10% of autistic people have skills such as maths or drawing that are of extraordinary ability. But this is really just a small proportion of the full numbers of individuals diagnosed with autism. It's best to look past this caricature and see the extraordinary human that lies beyond the diagnosis. 100% categorically no. There have been literally thousands of studies in this area, and all of them have found no association between vaccinations and autism. The assumption that people on the spectrum don't have a sense of humour is absolutely false. Probably the funniest conversations I've ever had have been with autistic kids and adults, and they absolutely run rings around me and telling jokes. Don't be fooled by the news stories that you may see. There is no evidence that individuals on the spectrum are more violent than the rest of the population. None. Many people on the spectrum are in wonderful, loving romantic relationships. Just like the rest of the community, not every person on the spectrum chooses to be in a romantic relationship, but that is not the same as not being capable of doing so. Many people on the spectrum have intellectual disabilities, and also many do not. Just because someone may have communication difficulties doesn't mean that they also have intellectual disabilities. What it means is that we have to assess intelligence in a different way, a way that doesn't rely so heavy on communication skills. Not every child will be great at maths. Not every child will repeat back words. Not every child will have difficulty speaking, and not every child will have hand mannerisms. Every child and adult on the autism spectrum is different, full of their own unique talents, personalities, and yes, challenges. The label autism doesn't mean one thing. What it is a gateway to understanding a whole new way of thinking about the world, and those children and adults are to be cherished for that fact.
Sorry about that. Here we go. Okay. Earliest signs of autism. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommend for screening children for autism spectrum disorder from ages 1 to 2.5 years of age. However, there have been other studies that suggest screenings be completed from 1.5 to 6 years of age. In a study conducted, researchers found that children age 1 to 2 have a change in the core autism spectrum disorder symptom. The results revealed that children who were diagnosed before 2.5 years of age were 3 times more likely to exhibit considerable improvements in social autism spectrum disorder symptoms in comparison to children diagnosed in later years. Here are some of the studies that they have done back here. So next we'll go on to the historical development and neurology of autism, or in autism. The term autism first was used by psychiatrist Eugene Buehler in 1908. He used to describe a schizophrenic patient who had withdrawn into his personal or into his own world. The pioneers in research into autism were Hans Asperger and Leo Kanner. They were working separately in the 1940s, and autism came to be better known in the 1970s. The Erica Foundation started education and therapy for psychotic children in the beginning of the 1980s. It was increasingly believed that parenting had no role in causation of autism, and there were neurological disturbances and other genetic ailments like tuberous sclerosis, metabolic disturbances like PKU, or chromosomal abnormalities like Fragile X syndrome. Go back here. There we go. Characteristics and prevalence of autism spectrum disorder worldwide as of 2023. Prevalence was 1 in 160 children. 1 in 54 children in the U.S. are diagnosed with ASD. Diagnosis occurs typically after 4, that would be years of age, but white boys are more likely to be diagnosed in childhood. Autistic black children in the U.S. are commonly misdiagnosed with ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder. Autistic people are part of the LGBTQ plus community at higher rates than allistic neurotypical people. Only 41% of autistic students finish their undergraduate degrees in the U.S. Characteristics of autism spectrum disorders: there's difficulty with communicating with others, limited or no interest in their surroundings, echoing speech, repeating the question asked to them, inability to perform activities at school and home, lack of eye contact, the need to be alone, not understanding emotions, speech delay, providing unrelated answers, getting upset over minor changes in daily routine. There are obsessive interests, sharp reactions to high sound, smell, and taste, inappropriate response to situations, difficulty in cultivating social skills. The etiology of autism, this is what I found on Wikipedia. There are many causes of autism, including environmental and genetic factors. They have been recognized or proposed by understanding of the theory of causation of autism. Well, it's incomplete. Attempts have been made to incorporate the known genetic and environmental causes into the comprehensive causative causative framework. ASD is a neurodevelopmental disorder marked by impairments in the communicative ability and social interaction, as well as restrictive and repetitive behaviors. Things that we see or that we notice every day with autistic students would be like hand flapping, things like saying things over and over and over again. I have a son that actually has autism, and in his earlier years he was very adamant and with hand flapping. He also would repeat himself in different things, things that would be more of interest to him. That is also a characteristic of autism. Early signs to not miss out. There are several early warning signs that describe what children at risk for an autism spectrum disorder do and do not between the ages of 12 and 24 months. Toddlers who are typically developing may exhibit some of the red flags. One being using an unusual tone in voice when talking or babbling, long-term carrying of objects, take an unusual approach to playing with toys. They do not smile back when you're smiling. Don't show others objects. They have inability to use common gestures and minimizing facial features. There is a late onset of autism, which would show up in older adults, especially in adults that are in the late or in 65 and on up. You would find this in the older group that are exhibiting rude behavior or inability to understand what others are thinking or feeling. They avoid physical contact, especially eye contact, and getting very upset if someone touches or gets close to them. They also struggle with verbal, nonverbal communication, which can manifest in having trouble expressing thoughts and emotions, understanding sarcasm or like the misunderstanding, I should say, of sarcasm and figurative language, or having a unique speech pattern. They are also have the same type of symptoms as toddler and older children that have autism. According to the studies, autism is a lifelong development condition. It does not seriously worsen with age. However, the challenges and experiences that come with autism can change and evolve over time. The presence of co-occurring conditions such as anxiety, depression, and physical health issues may impact the well-being of those with autism as they age. Here is the autism continuum. Goes from severe, which would be those with the lower functioning with autism, going to like a passive type of attitude or type of condition here, all the way up to being gifted in certain areas, like for example social studies or math, maybe even English, but then and they are very hyper. They could be agile, verbal, active, but odd with their behaviors. So there are various differences between males and females when differentiating the effects of autism. The tendencies are so different between the two genders, as you can see at the right. So here we go. They're more repetitive behaviors in the males versus fewer repetitive behaviors like hand flapping or spinning. More restrictive or overly focused interests. Restrictive interests tend to be more socially unacceptable, tend to have trouble with vocabulary and word knowledge with the males, versus the females have a better vocabulary and word knowledge. Okay, thank you very much for listening to my speech this morning or this afternoon, and you have a wonderful day.